Alright. Alright, my friend. I actually hosted a book club session this morning, yet I haven't recorded my reading books aloud video yet. So I'm gonna do that, still with this book, The Pathless Path by Paul Millard. I'll start from chapter 3. Work, work, work. Until I had to take a leave from my job during my health crisis, work had been a fact of my life for me. I, like many others, had expected to work in a full-time job for most of my adult life. My illness helped me see the fragility of this worldview because now I understood that building a life around work was not so simple. My new perspective on work led me down a deep rabbit hole of questions and curiosities that led to me leaving my path and also led to this book. This is why, before we move forward in my story, we need to take a step back. If we are going to imagine a new way forward for our work and our lives, we need to understand where our current ideas from work come from and how they have changed. Where do work beliefs come from? German historian Max Weber found that the spirit of capitalism struggled to take hold in societies that embraced a traditionalist mindset towards work. In Weber's view, a traditionalist view of work is one where people work as much as they need to maintain their current lifestyle, and once that aim is achieved, they stop working. In my travels, I have been surprised to find this perspective alive and well all over the world. In Mexico, I overheard a conversation about hiring locals. You can't pay people too much because they'll stop working. The idea that people might decide to work less is hard for some people to imagine. This person, a foreigner, likely grew up in a culture like mine, where working in a formal job continuously throughout adulthood is what most people do. The difference between working to meet one's needs versus meeting expectations raises a question. When did this shift occur and why did it not happen universally? It might surprise you that in Greece, during the time of Aristotle more than 2,000 years ago, work was simply considered a necessary evil. The prime aim of life, according to philosophers, was eudaimonia, which translates literally as happiness, but is better expressed as flourishing. In Aristotle's words, the more contemplation, the more happiness there is in a life. Contemplating one's place in the universe was seen as one of the most worthwhile things to do, and at minimum, more important than the money-making life, which Aristotle described as something quite contrary to nature, for it is merely useful as a means to something else. I started to realize maybe I was influenced by Aristotle. Yeah, I read some of his works in university, but I can't really tell you what I learned. Maybe they have been internalized and shaped how I see the world and life. I don't know. For the next 1500 years, most of the world either remained skeptical of work or saw it simply as a way to meet basic needs. The latter idea was strengthened by the Catholic conception of work. Genesis, the first book of the Christian Old Testament, mentions work as God is condemning Adam for eating fruit from the tree of life. God tells him that only through painful toil will Adam continue to eat fruit, and only by the sweat of your brow will you eat your food until you return to the ground. Later in the New Testament, Saint Paul warns against, I don't think I pronounced this word right. Saint Paul warns against idleness more directly. He who shall not work shall not eat. In regard to those who refuse, he continues, Do not associate with them in order that they may feel ashamed. The lesson is clear. Work is a duty. However, it was still in a limited sense. We see this articulated by 13th century Catholic priest Thomas Aquinas, as he argues labor is only necessary rationally, by natural reason, for the maintenance of individual and community. People should be expected to work, but the reason is to meet the needs of our families and communities. In the 1500s, Martin Luther and John Calvin expanded this definition as part of what is now known as the Protestant Reformation. They had grown disappointed in religious leaders and attacked them for living idly in monasteries. Their angle of attack was one's relationship to work. Max Weber summarizes the shift, saying that the way to honor God was not to suppress worldly morality in monastic asceticism, but solely through the fulfillment of the obligations imposed upon the individual by his position in the world. That was his calling. With the introduction of a calling, Luther and then Calvin both wanted to undermine the authority of the Catholic Church to govern an individual's relationship with God. Luther took issue with the Church's system of indulgences, in which people paid the Church to absolve them of their sins. He thought individuals should be able to have their own relationship with God. Calvin paired Luther's increase in individual freedom with the idea that everyone is predestined to serve God through a specific calling. Working hard in the area of one's calling determines the status of a person's relationship with God. Cool. Honestly, I'm not so interested in reading this kind of stuff, this old stuff. These stories don't really serve much. It's good to know, but now we definitely have more complicated narratives, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to write the narratives myself. I'm trying to compose this narrative. I mean, I'm constantly testing narratives, change them if it doesn't serve. But the goal is to find that balance between everything. I guess that's Aristotle's idea, the golden point. That's one thing I can remember about his ideas. Maybe it's Aristotle, maybe it is, I think. Okay. I still need to educate myself with more knowledge. Still very ignorant. That's what pushes me to read more and start this book club meeting, to just learn from others and also teach others. Teaching is the best way to learn something. Okay. Thanks for watching and reading with me. Good night.